Court is in session in cause number 319900. The case is filed in the state of Texas versus Brian Davis. And we have present in court the defendant, Mr. Brian Davis. We also have present his attorney, Attorney Ryan Matuska. We also have present Assistant DA, District Attorney, sitting first chair, Mr. Blake Ham. And we have Assistant District Attorney, sitting second chair, Mr. Sonny Ecker. We have present also our court reporter, Ms. Carla Davis, our court coordinator, Ms. Trina Redmond. We have also our bailiff, Mr. Charlie Porter, and also present is myself, Judge Terrence L. Holmes. Mr. Porter, would you bring in the panel? Now, Mr. Porter and Mr. Matuska and Mr. Ham, the first thing I have to do is impanel the jury before voir dire, and then we usually give 25 minutes each side to do the voir dire.
That's fine with me, Judge.
Okay,
Sure.
that's fine with you as well?
Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Davis, do you need your tape here or you?
Leave it there.
Leave it there?
I have one out here, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Real quick before they come in.
Okay. First four.
Oh, yeah.
Mr. Moore. Wilson. Ms. Moore, all the way down. I'm sorry, right here. Number 13. Ms. Branch is going to be right here. Number 14. All the way around to number 15. Burgo, 16.
Yeah, 16 is against the wall.
17. All the way down.
Yeah, 16 is against, so he could walk around.
Mr. Miller is number 17.
Yeah, I was letting him know.
And Mr. Dumas, number 19.
Okay, 20 did show, okay. Court is now in session and calls number 319-900. The case is style of State of Texas versus Brian Davis. State, are you ready?
Yes, Your Honor.
Defense, are you ready?
Sir, Your Honor, ready.
Okay. First of all, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome you to County Court at Law number 2. My name is Judge Terrence L. Holmes. I'm the presiding judge here this afternoon. You have been called for jury duty for this week, and you will be examined for inclusion on a jury hearing a criminal case. Our courtroom hours vary, but are normally from 9 to 5. Whether you are selected as a juror today or not, you are performing a significant service which only free people can perform. If you are selected, the case will be tried expediently consistent with justice, which require a careful and correct trial. If selected on the jury, unless instructed otherwise, you will be permitted to separate at recess, for meals, and at night. At this time, I must attend to an administrative matter. That is, I have to give you the first of 2 oaths. What I need everyone to do is raise your right hand, and then when I finish giving you the oath, please say, "I do." Okay? Do you and each of you do solemnly swear or affirm that you will make true answers to such questions as may be propounded to you by the court or under its directions, touching on your service and qualifications as a juror, so help you God? Okay, you may put your hands down. The law requires that each of you must possess certain qualifications before you may be considered for service as a juror. Also, there are certain excuses and exemptions some of you may wish to claim. First, I would like to determine the qualifications of you. The qualifications for service on a criminal jury trial: it is very important that you answer these questions truthfully. If you do not, and the lawyers or I discover this fact after you have been selected or after you are seated on a jury, the case could be retried and you may be held in contempt of court and placed in jail for up to 180 days and fined up to $500. Now, I will ask you a series of questions, and I do not want you to answer the questions out loud. You can answer them to yourself. And at the end of the final question that is asked, I will ask you, is anyone disqualified under the law? And if you think that you are, just please raise your right hand. And then once you raise your right hand, we will ask that you come up to the bench to discuss the matter privately. And I will put on this so that no one will be able to hear what is being discussed. First question. Except for failure to register, are you a qualified voter in this county and state under the Constitution and laws of this state? Next question. Have you ever been convicted of theft or any felony? Next question. Are you under indictment or legal accusation or on deferred adjudication for theft or any felony? Next question. And mind you, jurors, I have to ask this question, so when you hear it, I know you may have a question. Are you presently insane, or have you been declared insane by any mental health or judicial official? Are you 18 years of age or older? Are you a citizen of the United States? Are you a resident of Texas and a resident of Jefferson County? Are you of sound mind and good moral character? Are you able to read and write the English language? Have you served as a pettit juror for 6 days in the preceding 3 months in a county court, or 6 days in the preceding 6 months in a district court? Is anyone disqualified under the law? If you think you are, would you please raise your right hand? Now, no one raised their hand, so everyone presently is qualified. Now we will proceed to exemptions. I will determine if anyone who is otherwise qualified to be a juror wishes to claim one of the following exemptions. You may claim any of the following exemptions if you choose to, but you are not required to claim them. If one of these applies to you, but you still desire to be considered as a juror, please continue to remain seated. And the questions are as follows. Are you over the age of 70? Do you have legal custody of a child or children under the age of 12 years, and jury service would necessitate leaving the child or children without adequate supervision? Are you a student in a public or private secondary school? Are you enrolled and in actual attendance at an institution of higher education? Are you an officer or employee of the Senate, the House of Representatives, or any department, commission, board, office, or other agency in the legislative branch of state government? Have you served as a pettit juror in the county during the 3-year period preceding the date you appeared for jury service today? Are you the primary caretaker of a person who is an invalid, unable to care for himself or herself? Are you a member of the United States military forces serving on active duty and deployed to a location away from your home station and out of your county of residence. If any of these exemptions apply to you and you do not desire to serve as a juror, please, first of all, raise your hand or come up to the bench at this time so that we can discuss this matter outside the presence of the panel. No one is raising their hand, so therefore no one is claiming an exemption. Now I will move to excuses. If any of you feel there's the reason why you cannot sit as a juror today, we will ask that you will please come up to the bench after I go over the following excuses. A juror may be excused for observance of a religious holiday upon completing an affidavit as required by the Texas Code of Criminal Procedure, Article 29.012C. A juror may not be excused for economic reasons without the consent of the parties. A juror who, without prompting, articulates an inability to listen to testimony and be fair and impartial may be excused. Is there anyone here who is exercising an excuse? Would you please raise your right hand? No one is raising their hand, so therefore, no one in the panel is exercising an excuse. Now, ladies and gentlemen, you have, as I said earlier, you have been summoned here for a criminal case. The defendant is Brian Davis. And Mr. Davis is being represented by his attorney, Attorney Ryan Matuska. The state is represented by its assistant criminal district attorneys, and sitting first chair is Attorney Blake Ham, and sitting second chair is Assistant District Attorney Sonny Eckhart. The court reporter in this case is Ms. Carla Davis. She will be taking down everything being said, so speak up when you are answering or asking questions. Our court coordinator, sitting to my right, is Ms. Trina Redmond. And the court reporter is Mr. Charlie Porter. Let's get the bailiff. The bailiff is Mr. Charlie Porter. Now, the defendant stands charged by information with the offense, which is a Class A misdemeanor offense of evading arrest, detention. And the punishment range is a Class A misdemeanor. And the punishment range for a Class A misdemeanor, person could be sentenced to the county jail for up to 365 days, which is a year. Person could be given a fine anywhere from $0 to $4,000, or they could be given both such fine and confinement. The state and the defendant, through their attorneys, have the right to direct questions to each of you concerning your qualifications, background, experiences, and attitudes. In questioning you, they are not meddling into your personal affairs, but are trying to select fair and impartial jurors to hear and decide this particular case. If at any time you would prefer not to answer certain questions in the presence of the panel, just say so, and I will ask you to come up to the bench so that we may discuss it more privately. State, are you ready to proceed?
Stage ready, Your Honor.
Is the defense ready to proceed?
Yes, sir, Your Honor.
Mr. Ham, the panel is yours.
Thank you, Judge. Excuse me a minute, I got. Yes, technical skills.
And Mr. Ham, you have 25 minutes and I'll be keeping the time.
Thank you, Judge. Good afternoon. My name is Blake Ham, and along with my friend Sonny Eckhart, we represent Jefferson County, state of Texas, in this misdemeanor criminal trial. And as the court has mentioned, in case you're still wondering why the criminal case is, that you will be hearing if you're selected to be one of the 6 jurors to sit over there, would be evading arrest or running from the police. That's my business crime. And like the judge told you, it's a Class A misdemeanor. So this is a misdemeanor court. Felony courts are next door, right? And those are the, so felonies are, well, look, frankly, they're more serious charges, right? More serious criminal charges. They come with much higher penalty ranges. This misdemeanor court, and I'll paraphrase, there are some exceptions, but generally here's Class A misdemeanors and Class B misdemeanors. And Class B being lower, Class A being higher. So this is evading arrest, running from the police, Class A misdemeanor. So thanks for being here. Again, State of Texas versus Brian Davis. It's Mr. Davis, Mr. Matuska. The court introduced you to everybody, all right? So Charlie and Carla and Trina and of course Judge Holmes and Sonny, Ryan and Mr. Davis. Does anybody here know any of us that are talking to any of us before? Yes, ma'am. And making sure my chart's right. This is Catherine. Or Miss Brent, sorry, Miss Brent. Do you know Judge Holmes? How do you know Judge Holmes?
I'm a probation officer.
Okay, thanks. So before I ask her you may hear this question quite a bit during this process. The purpose of this is sometimes called jury selection. It's more properly termed jury deselection or jury deselection because what happens is the first 6 people from 1 through 20 who are not stricken from this pool of potential jurors will be the ones that end up sitting up here. Okay. So, and what are we looking for in a juror? We're just looking for somebody who can listen. And in a minute, I'll get to what the elements of this particular crime are. But we're just looking for someone who can listen to the law. Okay, these are the elements. When the trial begins, watch the evidence that's presented to you, and fairly and impartially decide whether or not you believe a crime occurred and whether Mr. Davis is guilty or innocent of the crime he's been accused of. So, it gets back to you, Ms. Moran. Do you believe that your, knowledge or relationship with Judge Holmes through your position as a probation officer would affect your ability to impartially decide this case? Okay, thanks. So that's kind of what we're looking for. Everybody comes in here. We all come in their own predisposition. Everybody has their own experiences, their own lives, we're all grown up differently, different places, whatever, okay? And maybe, not that there's anything wrong with anybody, but maybe you're just not the right guy or gal to sit on this group. You're like, look, for whatever reason, I can't get over this or that, it's too big a deal for me or whatever. And I'm not the right person to decide. I can't be impartial, whatever reason, and that's what we're trying to get. So, moving on. All right. So what do we have to prove? So and we'll talk about reasonable doubt in a minute. What do we have to prove? State of Texas versus Brian Davis. We have to prove that in Jefferson County, Texas, the defendant, Mr. Davis, on or about April 15th, 2018, intentionally fled from a police officer that was attempting to lawfully detain him. Those are the elements we have. Okay, and like we said, we already talked a little bit about this. What would your role be if you end up being on the jury? Your role, if you end up being on the jury, is this vote for guilt or innocence based on the law and the evidence that you see. Okay? That's it. And in this case, the defense has a choice. They've decided whatever punishment, let's say that the jury found Mr. Davis guilty. Well, this jury would not be responsible for deciding what his punishment is because the defense has decided to let the judge determine that. I'll talk a little bit about, what kind of punishment we're looking at. Well, for a Class A misdemeanor, this is the max you can get now. I mean, frankly, rarely get the max, right? But the max you can get for a Class A misdemeanor is up to a year in jail and or $4,000 fine. Also, of course, the defendant may be eligible for probation in lieu of jail time. We talked about this a little bit. So there's another word, the fancy word for jury selection is the word iron. I'm told that means to speak the truth. So, hopefully we engage in some sort of conversation. This would be the only time we get to talk to each other. Because once this is over, between you and me, we can't talk. So hopefully, speak up, speak the truth. Some people will tell you if you just sit there and you're quiet, you won't get picked or you will get picked. Okay, so actually we're attempting to find the best 6 jurors for this case. We talked about that. All right, burden of proof. Okay, everyone knows, I think, the state has the burden of proof in this case. That's the best thing, regardless of what you think about America now. But we still have, I'm convinced, the absolute best criminal justice system in the entire world. Okay, I mean, where else are we going to go through this type of expense and effort to decide whether or not a man is guilty of a crime? Probably no other country on the planet in this. Me, I'm not aware of it. So I think it's great that 6 of you will decide whether he's guilty or innocent, not the judge, myself, and Mr. So, what is the burden of proof? Burden. Let me ask this: who here knows what burden? What do you think a burden means? Anyone? Burden.
A
load. A load. Yeah, it's a load. A load. Yes, ma'am.
A heavy weight.
A heavy weight. That's right. So a burden is a responsibility. It's a load. It's a heavy weight, and in this case, it's the state's heavy weight, and we gladly accept that. We know that going into this. Prove beyond a reasonable that the evidence shows that the defendant did what he did. Okay. All right. Now, what is a reasonable doubt? Books have been written on those. Anybody have any idea what they think the reasonable doubt? See, law and order, that kind of thing. Beyond a reasonable doubt. All right, we'll talk about it. In the end, it is not an impossible standard. It is a common sense standard. We can by law, it used to be, that we could define what that means for you. All right, the courts have said, no, you're gonna knock that off. We can't define what it means to you anymore. All right. All we can tell you is that it's a common sense standard. All right. Okay, look, hold on. I wasn't gonna show you the slide because I think it's silly, but my wife thought it would be a good idea. All right, and so this is the baby slide, and it's our effort to try to explain to you in pictorial fashion what beyond reasonable doubt means. Okay, so we have the baby, and it's a cute baby, and we have a chocolate cake. Okay, so if you're looking at the evidence on the left, you see the cake, see some of it's missing, you see the baby's face is down in the cake. We know beyond, that's pretty much beyond any doubt, right? This baby ate that cake. Right? It's the culprit, the baby. You look on the other side, when we don't have the evidence of the baby face down in the cake, right? We just see the baby later on walking around with chocolate all over his face, right? The common sense would tell you that if there's bites missing out of that cake and the baby's walking around covered in chocolate, the baby's the culprit. Are there other potential, things people, okay, look at it on the right. What's another potential thing that could have happened to that cake besides the baby? Anybody? Idea?
Somebody else had eaten the cake and it fell on the floor and the baby got it.
It could have been, right? That could have been. It could have been, somebody took a handful of the cake and smeared it on the baby's face. Or maybe the dog jumped in it and rubbed it all over. I don't know, right? But common sense says in this situation, if there's a baby-sized bite out of that cake and there's chocolate all over the baby's face, we're going to say, well, baby ate it. That's our attempt to try to illustrate what beyond a reasonable doubt. It's not an impossible standard. It's not an unreasonable standard. It is beyond a reasonable doubt. You get to decide what that means to you. Okay? You bring whoever gets picked for the jury, you're going to bring all your experiences with you, and your knowledge, and your smarts, and your common sense, and you're going to decide, I think it's beyond a reasonable doubt that we can do it right or not. Right? That's realistic. Okay, couple of questions. Question number one, if you'll please take a moment to look at the slide. Can anyone not read this? Again, I'll read it. And decide whether you're 1, 2, or 3. All right, and the judge told you we're not trying to pry or pick on you. All right, but it may seem, please don't take it that way. It's our job to try to find out who needs to be here. So, all right. Should be a crime to run from the police. Who thinks number 1? Yes. All right, Mr. Buchanan. Why do you think it ought to be a crime to run from the police?
Because they're there to serve and protect, and if they see something out of ordinary, they'll make it to the danger to the community, they need to check on it. Run from them. Take that ability from them.
All right, and maybe you're heightening some suspicion of what's going on there, right? And Boudreaux, thank you. I'm sorry, I'm I'm from West State. So, Ms. Boudreaux, so why do you think it should be a crime?
I was always told that you never run from the cops. When you're gonna rise, you'll give them reason to go after you anyway.
Yep, okay, fair enough. All right. I mean, hey, if it's well, Ms. Brink, you had your hand up there, right? Why do you think?
Like she said, if you don't have a
Yeah. You don't have a reason why run? Good. And somebody else have their hand up over here? Okay. I haven't heard from Ms. Moore. Ms. Moore, is that right? No. Yeah. Thibodeau. These names. Sorry, Ms. Thibodeau.
I think it just makes things worse. I mean, I think we should just talk to the cop and just listen to what he has to say. If you have a problem with it, I mean, I think if you run, it just makes things worse. Just, stay calm and just talk to him, As cops are not going
So, Ms. Moore, what do you think?
I think that it should be. I mean, if you don't have anything to hide, you might as well say, speak up. I mean, they're there to help.
Well, let me ask you this. So I'm going to stay picking on you for a minute because we're talking. So what about just the fact that the legislature thinks it's a crime? Is that good enough? Like the state of Texas legislature, you know, our elected representatives came up with this, wrote it down, said, hey, this is a crime, don't do it. Is that enough for you?
That's enough for me.
Mr. Miller, would that be enough for you?
Yes.
Okay. Fair enough. Does anybody disagree with that? Or is it? Okay. Well, let's ask you a different one. Let's go to number 2. Who thinks it shouldn't be a crime? And it's fine if you do. I mean, I know I'm up here representing the state of Texas, but you know, I'm not anti-human being either. So does anybody think, no, running from the police, this should not be a crime? How about it depends? Fair enough, Mr. Moore.
Well, I mean, we live in a world full of ambiguities. I mean, I don't know what's happening. I don't know where that police officer came from. Is he a police officer? I mean, generally, yes, it is a crime and you should stay there. But if you have something in your mind that, you know, he's not what he says he is, or he's already threatened me, he could fall in that depends area just because of the ambiguities we have.
There'd be good reason. Yeah, there could be a good reason to run from somebody that may
Has
or
a
may not.
gun and is not, you know, maybe not criminal.
No, I get that. I mean, we live in a weird world.
Yeah.
Mr. Ham, you have 10 more minutes.
All right, thanks. Somebody else raise their hand on it. Yeah, yes, sir, Mr. Russo. Blanchard, sorry.
I think it's all situation, depending on situation.
Can you think of a situation where it'd be like, hey, yeah, go ahead?
Group of people at a party, it all disperse. It's all it is.
Been there, done that, yeah. Okay.
Things like that, just, I mean,
Mhm.
but,
Let me ask you this. Does that feeling, do you think if, I understand your feeling, I mean, I get it, right? I understand it, but do you think even if we prove to your not mine, the elements of this crime beyond a reasonable doubt, we do that, that you could still find him guilty?
yes.
Okay, if we could do that. Okay, if we could, I'm not saying.
Yeah, it's black and white, I see it here. Yeah. We're going down circles and that's the beginning part.
Gotcha. All right, well, we got to run out of time. So move on to this question. So, you know, this case may or may not involve the evidence in this case, may or may not involve testimony from police officers, right? And you're going to have to listen to police officers when they do the evidence, and the defendant may or may not testify, right? He doesn't have to, he just doesn't have the right not to. And you can't hold that against him for not testifying. But, all good? So, if you're listening to police officers, right? And look, some people have bad experiences with police officers, I get that, right? Some people have, right? We all come in with our own experience. Our law enforcement officers trustworthy. Number 1, yes. Number 2, no. Or number 3, again, it depends. All right, take a minute, think about it. Okay, maybe not a whole minute because we're running out of time. Think about it. All right. Let me just cut to the chase. Who's number 3? It depends. Okay. Mr. Miller, oh, wait, I haven't talked to Ms. Cormier. Ms. Cormier, why does it depend?
I've seen in the last few years that all over our country, that our police officers have violated their principles, their standards, their training. They have different motives, different things going on, different killings. It just depends. I mean, like the people, there's good people, there's bad people, there's medium people, you know. It's all about discernment, and it's all part of how you were trained and how that person is going to defend our country, our state, and our town.
I agree. Let me ask you this way. If you have an officer, he's up there, a police officer, he's up there testifying, can you lend him the same, credibility that you would any other person? Until he, but just because he's wearing a uniform, would you start out thinking, oh, I don't think he's gonna tell me the truth? Or would you start out thinking, oh, he's wearing a uniform, I think he's gonna be more true?
I do try to trust that, but I do know that he's also going to be not perfect. We all do that. Right there, like,
I think that's super fair. Ms. Brown, do you agree with Ms. Cormier? You do? Why?
Based off of these officers are human, so like she said, until that you really do not to trust them. I mean, I would lean on trusting them initially, and as testimony went on, I would, it's not.
Perfect. Let's see, Mr. Dumas, I don't think I've heard from you. How do you feel about all this?
I mean, I feel that it depends. I mean, let's say you're human, so it can into your mind, but and I think it also goes back to, like you said, we all have different backgrounds. How has someone sat down and explained to you how you should behave or act in a situation that comes up with a police officer? You know, and for them listening to those teachings would probably determine what their reactions would be.
I would agree with that. People may be predisposed based on what they've been taught and their own experiences, which is also a form of teaching, I guess. But when you see a police officer up there, is a police officer going to start with more or less credibility than any other person for you?
Yeah. You would think after they, you know, they've taken the oath to protect their service, so I would look at them, you know, as being trustworthy, but, you know, while they're up there.
Be very disappointed if they were lying.
Right.
All right. Let's see, this M.
Sam, you have 4 more minutes?
4 minutes. We got 4 minutes. So, how do you feel about this whole situation?
I think in general, they are trustworthy, but, you know, there's exceptions to everything, but in general, I trust the police.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Thank you all very much for your time, and I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Well, you need help? You're not gonna accidentally drive today.
Okay.
You're right.
Ms. Matuska, Panel is yours.
Mr. Eckhart.
You have 25 minutes.
Thank you, Judge. Morning, folks. As Mr. Holmes said, my name is Brian Matuska. Anybody here know me? There's a lot of people here from the Negro around this panel. It's exceptionally large percentage. It's where I office and I live. I didn't recognize any on the list, but my wife is Jamie Matuska. Some people know her. She grew up in the Negro also. As I said, I've been practicing here. My office is located in England since 2007. I've worked both with the prosecutor's office and I've worked privately. I've tried a number of cases through the years. I am here today on behalf of Mr. Davis, and it is my honor and privilege to be here in front of you all as his defender in this case. We can't talk about the facts just yet. I have to get on the jury to find more about the facts. But why not just let the jury decide? Or the judge, the prosecutor, the police, and not the jury. I mean, Miss, is it Julia? Hoya. Why the jury?
The jury, because the jury is unbiased.
It's fair.
Yes.
Okay. And Mr. Moore, you agree or disagree with that?
I agree to some extent. I mean, it's why a jury, because everybody sees things in a different way and you get a collective group thought and you come up with one decision.
Yeah.
Probably the fairest, the balance.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mr. Mott. You agree or disagree?
I agree.
Why so?
Because I think it's the community coming together to make a decision. Instead of someone that could be tilted one way or the other.
Well, if any of us are fortunate enough to find ourselves in the defendant's chair, is there anyone who would not want a jury, or at least the option to have a jury? Just about all of us, right? This was a very important matter for our founding fathers. Checks and balances, corruption, protect our constitutional rights. Any other reasons y'all can think of why a jury is important?
Say tunnel vision.
And you are juror number 10, Ms. Cormier?
Yes.
Tunnel vision?
Yes.
What is that?
Tunnel vision, I would say, policemen, prosecutors, the judges, all know the law front to that pretty well. I would say they can be focused, whereas if you have a jury, you have backgrounds, different skill sets, and then you can bring all the skill sets to say, here, I see something that you didn't.
That's an excellent point. You all have so many experiences and educations that you all bring like a melting pot. That, I think of the prosecutor sometimes as a hammer and me sometimes as a shield. And we're both important, but we do that one thing. You guys all come together and you have to what? Agree? You have to agree, right? That's important too. Okay, thank you very much. So we're a free country, we value our liberty, we're ruled by the people, we have rights. And I go to school sometimes, mainly in England, and I talk to kids about rights, and they always have interesting answers. So I'm gonna put y'all on the spot, Ms. Hardaway. What rights are important to you?
Right. Freedom of speech, I guess,
That's a very good one, yes.
and thinking and religious freedom are very important to me.
Not have to come to court and sit in this chair just because of what you said.
Right.
It's a pretty big deal. We don't think about it much. Thank you. Ms. Moore?
this
I
morning.
can't see your numbers, you know, it's help you in the back of your chair.
Yeah.
It's like a scramble here, we don't know which road and where.
I'm number 9.
Ms. Thibodeau?
Yes.
So Ms. Moore, you're right, you're right.
Yes.
So,
Right,
asking you
I
the
mean,
same
the
question.
right to be heard, opinion, what do you think?
It's freedom of speech.
Mhm.
What about freedom of religion? That's a big one, right? So sometimes we can't take that one for granted, but that's pretty big. Ms. Thibodeau, and you?
I would say freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom to be whatever you want it to be, basically. You know,
I can't remember last time I went this far without guns being brought up. Just did what I said, but, Mr. Wilson?
Well, the right to vote, to make choices, and I have to think about, just the right to be able to get in my vehicle and go where I want to go, come home when I want to come home. Just the right to freedom.
And not worry about all that other stuff. Thank you all very much. Sitting here today, can I see a show of hands for guilty? That's an easy one, right? Okay, how about not sure? Guilty, not sure. Mr. Davis? Not sure? Yeah. Not guilty. Why is that? Miss Emmer? That's my question. I have you. What do we have in this system that's important? Presumption of innocence, right? What is that?
Means that you have to look at the facts and analyze the facts and make your own mind up.
Do you think that's a natural instinct that we have? Especially in a setting like this?
Yeah.
Just presume someone innocent.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, well, I appreciate that. Ms. Moore, how about you?
I'd say not sure.
Not sure?
I haven't heard anything.
Do you understand the law requires a presumption of innocence?
Yes.
It's the only lawful authority throughout the trial needed for you to elect a fellow citizen not guilty. And it lasts throughout the entire trial. Ms. Moore, agree or disagree?
I probably agree with that.
Why is that?
Well, because you have to prove that if they're guilty or not.
You have to hear the evidence,
Mhm.
you have to go back, talk about it, and I'll decide, right?
Right.
The government has to prove each and every element beyond a reasonable doubt or not guilty, right? Now, an accusatory system requires the government in this contest with the individual to shoulder the entire load. And I believe Ms. Hardaway said heavyweight, and Mr. Mott said a heavy load. So you got the way heavy in there. An entire load. Brian can sit, listen, do nothing, present no evidence, invoke his right not to testify, remain silent. Mr. Walden, how does that make you feel?
I'm good with that.
How come?
How come?
Yes, sir.
Because he has right to.
Thank you. Mr. Mott, how does that make you feel? Someone just sit here, do that, nothing.
Yeah, I get that right.
And the law requires us to what?
Yes.
Listen to the evidence, but also presume innocence. Okay. Ms. Hardaway, can you give me one? Innocent reason.
The young person, I was driving him on the beach on A1A from Daytona to St. Augustine. And it was dark. It's a beach road. So the car was following me. And I was scared and I go faster and faster. And then he turned on his lights, and it was a policeman. And I was scared. And so I just kept going faster and faster, and I could see myself doing that if I was unsure of the situation, and if I was unsure of what was going on.
So I think any of us in that situation may say the word scared.
Yeah, scared.
And why?
Just uncertainty and not knowing. Mine was not knowing, I was on a dark old road. Somebody was just following me, so, but in the other situations where, I've heard that police officers are impersonating, people are impersonating police officers as a woman, I could see myself being frightened if I was in a place where there wasn't a lot of people. I would want to make sure, I would probably call, or, you might run, speaking as a woman. It's scary.
Doesn't sound like it was in your intent, though, to evade the police.
No. Not at all.
You just were caught in that moment.
I did not know it was a policeman.
So you just saw the lights, you didn't actually see the
Just the
police.
car lights, yeah. And, just kept getting closer and closer to my bumper, and I just kept going faster and faster. I only had a both ways, so I couldn't go that fast.
You got to stand with it?
Yeah, and then I got a lecture about my free space on the road. But it was scary. It was so scary, and I can see a situation perhaps where I would get in where I would be frightened enough to get away if I could, but everything's relative. Everything's relative.
Thank you for sharing that. Can I see a show of hands, anybody's been pulled over for the police for a traffic violation or anything, speeding, any of that? Yeah, all of us, right? Mr. Moore, how do you feel when you get pulled over?
How do I feel? Heart race.
Yeah, exactly.
Some of you, my wife's gonna kill me.
Jump right to the light. Yeah, I probably would too, but is that, Ms. Boya, do you think that's common to feel that heart racing?
Yes,
Pulled over, why?
it's anxiety inducing.
We don't want to have encounters with the officers, even though we want to trust them, right?
Right.
Why is that?
We don't want to have encounters with the officers, even though we want to trust them, because encounters with police officers are uncomfortable.
Should they be?
No,
Why are they?
they're uncomfortable because they're foreign.
Exactly. We're not used to that, right?
Right,
We think maybe somebody else, but not me, right?
right.
So, Mr. Wilson, do you agree or disagree?
I agree, even if I was speeding, like in Sour Lake, when you shouldn't be speeding. You still don't want a ticket, you want to deal with the aftermath, and so, yeah, there's some, you don't expect it, but you don't want to be yelled at or criticized but, it does definitely make your heart race when that cop's coming with his ticket book out.
Yeah. Mr. Blanchard, can you think of an instance?
I would be more in the situation of, like, maybe speeding, you see them going the opposite way, and you see them about to bust a U-turn, going off in the neighborhood, or something like that.
Okay.
Like commit like a armed robbery or something that I think should run in.
That's not very innocent, yeah.
But some little petty, like when you like slap over this, gotta go pay $100 fine, on community service or something.
Do you understand what Mr. Hamm said? This is first degree or at class A, misdemeanor. So you could be looking up to a whole year in jail. So I don't think any of us want to run there. But
Mr. Tuska, you have 10 more minutes.
Thank you, Ron. Mr. Moore said something that stuck in my mind. Something in your mind. So Mr. Waldman. On this note, on this question of an innocent reason, what's going on in the person's mind? Is that important to you? You saw the elements. One was intentional.
I don't really see a reason wrong.
Yeah?
Yeah,
Ever?
no,
Okay. Well, I appreciate your honesty.
yes.
Anyone else just absolutely 100% feel that way? It's okay. All right. Mr. Mott, what about you?
To run from the place,
An innocent reason.
honestly, why you would run from the place if you're innocent.
No? Miss Emery. How about you?
No, I can only relate to traffic stops and I'm usually guilty of stops. I mean, let's be honest.
I understand.
So, you know,
And I guess I'm taking Mr. Haynes' question a step further. When he said, just run. But we're talking about the intent, as I've spoken to Ms. Harwood about. Do you feel like that's important? There's an element of this that the state has proved to you beyond a reasonable doubt.
the intent to run without, I don't know, I might think, from young persons, you know, that maybe it's, you're not thinking straight. I think the older we are, you know, I think you might panic and run and think later, maybe I shouldn't have done that. And
No, that's a good point. I appreciate you sharing that. And Ms. Hardaway kind of spoke about this, but we're all sitting in a very sterile, almost vacuum here. Well, none of us are being pulled over. None of us are in the dark. So does that make a difference to you? The situation may play a part, or there may be factors. Would that be something you would be able to consider? Ms. Tibbet, how about you?
Well, actually, and I have to say this, but when I was young, like I just turned 20, I was speeding on Twin City Highway, and I didn't know, and the cop was chasing me everywhere, and I was jamming to my music, I wasn't paying attention. I didn't realize that it went from 75 to 45 to 30 as on Twin City, and I'm doing like 75, 80 all the way up until Newland Avenue. And finally, I looked and I'm like, oh my gosh, he was like, man, I've been chasing you this whole time. And so to me, that was an innocent running from the cops. And I thought, dear God, I'm like, here I am 20 years old, and my parents are gonna kill me, you know, even though I didn't. So that was an innocent, you know, but I
That's
didn't
a
mean to
great
do
example.
that, but you know.
So you're thinking one thing,
Yeah,
he's probably thinking,
he's thinking this girl's crazy and he's calling back up and that all these cop cars were behind me. And I'm like, what in the world? Like, what's going on? And I started crying like immediately. And he was like, oh, you're just crying, you know. I said, no, really, because I can cry on cue of police officers, you know. But this was a real cry. And I was like, I'm so sorry. I'm just jamming the music. I'm home from work. I'm so sorry. And it was totally innocent. But then he started laughing and of course I got a huge ticket, but that was an innocent running from the police.
so, and I'm sure you were pretty sorry about that.
Yeah, I was very sorry and apologetic that I was, you know, respectful to the police officer, even though he was really in my face and like, get out of the car. And I was all like shaking out to death, but I just did whatever he told me to do. And I didn't want to cause any problems. And even when I was trying to talk and kept telling me to stop, I'm like, you know. So, but I didn't get arrested or anything.
So just running isn't enough. There's more to it, right?
Yeah, there's more to it for sure. I mean, I didn't know, but if you know you're doing it, like, you know, if you're running and you know this cop is behind you, I mean, why do it? I don't get it.
Clearly, your intent was not to evade.
Right.
But you see why that's an important element.
Yeah.
And, thank you for sharing that.
Mr. Matuska, you have 5 more minutes.
Anybody, just a show of hands, have car wreck experiences? Okay, let me ramp that up. Bad car wreck experiences. Okay, bunch of us. Thank you. You guys just touched upon this, so I just want to go real quickly, into this with some legal training and education. I'm gonna skip through some of these because we're running out of time, but Mr. Ham touched upon legal standards with the baby cake and with beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, you're at the courthouse, depending on what court you go to, you may run into any of these. And the bottom one is the beginning. And it goes up like stairs to the top beyond a reasonable doubt, which is why we're here in criminal courtroom. Reasonable suspicion. Has anybody heard this show of hands? Maybe on TV? Okay. This is the minimal level for a police to stop you and encounter you. But it has to be specific reasons, more than mere hunch. Can't just be, I'm just gonna pull over Mr. Moore, just because Ms. Carlos can. How much proof is that, Mr. Moore? Tiny bit, little bit,
Pretty good bit, I would think.
something, right? So next we get probable cause. This allows the police to actually arrest. And it's a relatively high level of suspicion, according to our courts. Involves a fair probability that evidence of a crime will be found. Mr. Mott, how high of a standard do you think this is? You know it's higher than the last one.
Probably, like you said, it's higher than the last one. You have a probable cause.
It's a good bit, right? To actually cuff you and put you in the car and take you to jail, or to search you, hopefully. It's not too invasive. Ms. Thibodeau, with you and your story, you can see where you had to get for an officer to get riled up to this point, right? Then we have preponderance of evidence. This is an easy one. This is the scales we think of usually. This is 51%. We know exactly what number this is at. This is in civil lawsuits, property, guns. That's what we think of
You have
sometimes.
2 minutes.
Money, home. And that one's easy. We have a definition. We also have a definition, and I'm glad Mr. Ham used it, baby. Clear and convincing evidence. In Texas, it's statutorily and judicially defined as a firm belief that the allegations are true. This allows the government to take children. In this corner, how high is that standard? We've seen 51%. We've seen 2 below that are somewhere under 51%. Can you put a number on that? Pretty high, right?
Speak up a little bit, ma'am. Speak up for me a little bit. Oh, 75%.
Thank you. Mr. Wilson, how about you?
I would think it'd be higher than that to take someone's
You have
children,
1 minute.
90%.
Pretty high?
Yeah.
Can I see a show of hands who has children? It's a scary thought, right? The government taking children. It happens. Now, it happens in extreme cases, but it does happen, and this is defined. Mr. Wilson, is it common sense?
If the children are in danger, yeah, it'd be common sense.
Do you?
You have 30 seconds.
Ms. Thibodeau, how about you?
This would be something pretty bad. That would be the ultimate, I would think.
The ultimate.
Yeah.
Well, this is the ultimate. In criminal court.
10
no
seconds.
reasonable doubt, it's gonna be the ultimate. Okay. And we don't define this. That's why I defined everything under it for you. Thank you very much for your time. Hang on one second.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen of the panel, we're gonna ask that you follow the bailiff out into the hallway, and we may call some of you back in to do some follow-up questions. So just follow the bailiff out into the hallway.
No, not from the state, John.
Okay. Okay,
I mean, unless you do, okay.
you don't have no challenges, clauses on both sides?
No, sir, no, you don't.
Okay.
All right.
Now,
Can we use the jury room, John?
if somebody could use the jury room and somebody could use here. So what I'll do,